John O'Brien.
Well, Timmy is right. The Ukrainians have proved enormously resilient over the last 3 years. There were lots of people who were saying in January 2022 that Putin wasn't going to invade. Then a month later they were saying, oh, the Ukrainians will have to give in because the mismatch in power is extraordinary. They didn't. And I think it is shameful and outrageous for Claire to blame Ukrainians. They were invaded, subject to mass murder, the kidnapping of tens of thousands of Ukrainian children. And you have the gall to look Ukrainians in the eye and blame them for what Putin did to them. There's one person responsible for this war, and it's Vladimir Putin.
John, I mean, you have been one of the biggest cheerleaders of this war from the beginning. You have lied repeatedly, saying
for the Ukrainians, defending themselves.
I didn't interrupt you. How do you championing and saying Ukraine must win? Ukraine is winning in spite of the fact, and it's nothing to do with the lack of heroism from the Ukrainian people. They have valiantly done their best, but as one of the guests said, they're a much smaller country than Russia. The idea that they could militarily defeat Russia is pie in the sky. It always was, and you're cheerleading of a continuation of a war fueled by the US.
It was not fueled by the US or NATO. Why do you never listen to the Ukrainian people? Why do you never listen to Ukrainians?
Why don't you listen to the opinion polls in Ukraine, where the nearer you get to the conflict, the more people want a resolution? Why don't you listen to the 100,000 Ukrainians who've been charged with desertion, who don't want to fight? They want peace. They deserve peace. And we in Europe should have had their backs. We should have had their backs and argued and stood behind them for a resolution to this. Instead, we said they had to fight on.
Britain had attacked us, Claire, and had taken over the whole of Leinster, caused the deaths of hundreds
really
of thousands of people. Would you be saying the same thing?
I think that is so important, because you're totally right. We in Ireland know exactly what Ukraine is going through, and we live on an island. Can I finish the point, John, please?
Yeah, please.
Can we finish? Where the 17% of the island of Ireland is still occupied by Britain, but we celebrate the peace agreement and the Good Friday Agreement, which the US helped us as one of the greatest achievements in modern peace, because nobody is dying and because there is a process for how we might achieve a united Ireland. So why can't the Ukrainians have the right to have peace, to end the deaths, and to have a process for how those disputed territories would be dealt with?
Do you think Putin genuinely wants peace and will go home, pack up and go back?
This is not about individuals. Successive Russian presidents for decades have been saying, since the breakup of the Soviet Union, don't push NATO onto our borders. That's provocation.
Okay, can I bring in...
In the same way as the US wouldn't allow the Cubans put Russian USSR missiles.
Well, can I just say, you did predict before that they would not invade in the first place. So if you were wrong then, you could be wrong now.
So did Zelensky. You know, nobody thought it.
If you were uniquely wrong about it, I'm saying, is it not difficult to predict what Putin will do?
Well, it's not about the desires of individuals. It's about following their actions. And we say that he's a fixed person. Putin worked well for years with Bush in the 9/11 counter-terrorism. Putin worked with the Americans. He worked quite well with Obama at certain stages.
Does he think that Putin would work well with Trump?